that playlist lined up just right. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike Dane with MLS Technology. Today we're going to be doing a class going over the SentriKey showing system. Or excuse me, SentriKey showing service. There you go. This is an hour-long CE credit class. It's hot CE because this is a hot topic, but So we're going to run through just a couple things with the actual webinar process itself before we actually start the course content, at which point we will start keeping track of the CE credit, and anybody that sticks around after 105 and all the way through to the end of the class should be eligible for the CE credit. I'll repeat that again once we actually get started with the course content, but you guys are all eligible as long as you stick around. There will be some interactivity during the course just to make sure that everybody's still present and available. This will be required for the CE credit, but we'll deal with that as it comes. So first and foremost, I wanted to run through just some basics on Zoom. So you guys are going to be starting on mute by default. There is a Q&A button down at the very bottom of your screen. If you guys do end up having any questions, you can type them out into the Q&A section. Chat is also going to be available. This is best used for comments, examples, any stories that you guys want to share, whatever the case may be. If it's not a question, put it into chat. If it is a question, make sure that it's posted into the Q&A, because if it's not, there's a chance I might miss it. Now, I also wanted to point out that we are going to be sending a recording of this session after class is over. But if you guys have any problems during the course, whether or not it's just a little technical hiccup, or if you guys are no longer hearing audio or the video stops or anything like that, post into the Q&A, into chat, hit the raise hand button. I really don't care. If you guys are having a problem, let us know as quickly as possible in whatever way you can. We don't want anybody to miss out on the CE credit. So if you do end up having a problem, let me know. There's a chance somebody else in the class might be having the exact same issue. And speaking of the CE credit, we'll be getting a report sent out for the attendance from today's class after class is over. Typically that stuff shows up before the end of the month. I did want to point out, you guys should receive an emailed copy of the receipt of your attendance sometime before then, but if you do notice any delays in that, there's always the chance that we've actually sent the information off, and subsequently it's just a matter of OREC getting it filed onto your license, which could take some time. I'm not sure if they're still in the process of it or if they've recently finished the process of moving over to a new recording system, but there's a chance that there might be some delays just because of that transition that they've gone through. All right. I also wanted to address the buttons that are available. So again, we've got the chat down at the very bottom of the screen. This is where you guys can post any examples, stories, whatever. We've got the Q&A for any questions. There's also a raise hand option. Let's say that you guys do end up wanting to ask a question, but typing it out might take a while, or you have some nuance or follow-up that you might need to ask after. You can hit that raise hand option, and we'll just recognize that that typically is going to mean that you want to get unmuted. So unless we're asking a question like, raise your hand if you've had blah, blah, blah. If I see a raised hand, I'm going to just assume that you want it to be unmuted, and we'll go ahead and unmute you and you can ask your question. Finally, if you guys are joining us on a mobile device, same rules apply. Raise hand to get unmuted, especially important because our chat and Q&A options are going to have that tiny little keyboard for you to type on. In order to see any of these buttons, though, you will need to click the screen in order to pull this all up. So tap the screen, see the button, tap on the button, type out your question, or hit that raise hand. But as always, if you guys do have any problems, give us a call over at the service desk or use our email address. Preferably, if you guys are trying to stay participating in the class, just give us a call. We got people on standby just to make sure that if there's any problems, you can get those questions answered quickly. All right. It's almost 10:05 or 1:05. I'm going to go ahead and launch our poll. The poll is actually required for the CE credit. Oh, and I do see that we have one call-in listener. That's not necessarily a problem. I should note that if you're doing this for audio, like if your audio isn't working on your computer and you're calling in just to get the audio side of things, that's fine. But if you're calling in to listen to the webinar, unfortunately, you will not receive credit. We do have to have you seeing the screen in order to receive the credit. But again, if you're watching on one screen and you got your phone doing the audio on the other side of things, that's perfectly fine. I've seen a variety of different combinations of things. Excellent. I got 4 more people that'll need to participate in that poll, or I guess 3 maybe. I do notice that we got one person that's actually signed in twice. If you are on 2 devices, no worries. But it may look like you're, oh, that's all right. We need 1 more person to participate, I believe. Or actually, we got the call-in listener and we also got a duplicate. I think we might have gotten everybody. I'll leave it open for another couple seconds here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right. So just so we can see what's happening, it looks like there is about half the class that is new to real estate, or at least relatively new. The rest of you guys been around the block. I'll try to make sure that a lot of the stuff that we're going to be discussing today is contextualized so that you guys understand why to use these things rather than just the how to use them. How many of you guys are currently using SentriLock boxes? It looks like actually the majority by a slight margin. A few of you guys are not. The good news about the SentriKey showing service is that you actually don't have to use the SentriKey lock boxes. So not to worry for those of you guys who are not using the SentriLock boxes. You guys can continue doing whatever you guys are doing. This is just going to be for the showing side of things, scheduling appointments, stuff like that. I see that a lot of you guys have actually already used the showing time service, half of you guys. The other half of you hadn't been familiar with it. That's perfectly fine. The systems that we're going to be discussing today, I'll be honest, there's some connection to the other systems that we had access to, showing time or CSS before it, but most of this stuff is going to be relatively new, or at least in a new layout. And I do see that about half of you guys, again, have already used the SentriKey showing service. So that's good. At least you guys have some experience in it. For those of you who have not to worry. We're going to be addressing not only how to get everything set up for the showing service, but also how to actually use it as well. So from the perspective of a showing agent rather than a listing agent, I should say. All right. Go ahead and stop sharing that. Thank you guys so much for that. Download the results just to make sure. Excellent. All right. So for those of you guys who haven't actually gotten a chance to get in here quite yet, the SentriKey showing service is actually a digital showing scheduling system, which is quite a mouthful. This is the real estate industry's first and only combined solution for managing showings, client communication, and also the property access. Now, it's being presented as a comprehensive solution, which is fully integrated with the SentriKey real estate lockbox systems that some of you guys are already using, which is going to help you guys stay organized, spend more time selling, and of course, deliver great experiences to your buyers and sellers. Now, so much of the real estate process is manual, it's time consuming, with change really being the only constant that you guys have to deal with. Now, agents are always on the go, find yourselves managing constantly changing schedules, market conditions, client needs. So by leveraging the state-of-the-art technologies on one cloud-based platform, the SentriKey showing service provides an easy-to-use, powerful, and even mobile-friendly solution. It's also integrated with the MLS tools that you guys already rely on. So the showing service solution actually revolutionizes the real estate professionals world. Wouldn't go that far. and provides a path to top producer success. That's probably true. So with one app, an agent can find appropriate properties, send the information to the client, schedule showings, build a daily itinerary, even plan a driving route, review the property's listing details, open the lock boxes at the showings, view showing instructions, property details, even solicit client feedback, where you guys can rate the properties and a lot more. So we're going to go ahead and get started on just the bare minimum basics. And we'll go ahead and yeah, that should be it. Sorry, there's a little bit of a written spiel that they wanted us to go through at the beginning. So that's over. Now we're going to get into the meat of things. So the SentriKey system has a couple different ways for you to access it. When you first get into the MLS, there is going to be the link to Matrix, which is where most people are actually going to be getting signed in. There is a link from the MLS portal over here where we've got the SentriKey option. Oh, and Mindy, I'm sorry, I didn't see when it was that you joined, but I'll have to double check the attendance records to see if you're too late, but I wouldn't worry about it for now. We'll just check that after class. But you can get in either through the Matrix homepage, where you have under the external links, there's a SentriKey button. And then there's also, again, that SentriKey button straight from the MLS portal. Now, either way that you guys sign into the SentriKey system, it's going to land you on a page that looks like this. Now, this is the old format for how the SentriKey system used to look. Everything is going to be shifting, and that's actually why I'm going to click on this My Schedule button. Everything will be shifting in the near future to look like this, where we have a little bit different layout for the buttons up at the top. There's a nice little profile image here. We've got a little chat box, and we've also got the little message system as well. Now, the layout that we see here is where most of the things that we're going to be interacting with will appear. But I did want to point out that when you guys first land, the easiest way to try and get to the system that shows the future layout, I guess I should say, is My Listings or My Schedule. Now, before we do anything inside the actual SentriKey showing service or even the keybox side of things, we want to make sure that all of our contact information is correct. So for those of you guys who have been through either our Matrix class or the RPR class, we always try to make sure that our profile information is up to date before we do anything else in the system, because if we're scheduling appointments or if we're sending listings over to buyers, sellers, whatever the case may be, we want to make sure that all of our contact information is correct and up to date. So I'm going to go over to this Manage My Account option. If you guys do happen to be anywhere else in the system, you can click on the little profile icon over here to the right, and it'll bring you to the same place if you go to My Settings. So again, on the home page, you can click on Manage My Account, or you can click on this My Settings. Either way, it should bring you to the same place where we start off with our profile settings, account settings, lockbox showing settings, and notifications. Now, the very first thing that you guys need to do, and you guys might have noticed this was even in Matrix recently as a little pop-up, we need to make sure that everybody in the system has their email and cell phone number added onto there. Now, this is a fairly simple process. You get your email address added, hit save, they send you a confirmation email, and you're done. Click the link, it's all over. With the cell phone number, just make sure that you put the cell phone number in there. There's a confirmation button down at the bottom. It's going to send you a code that you're going to then have to put into the system to confirm that that is in fact your cell phone number. Again, very simple process. If you guys have any trouble with it or any problems whatsoever with getting registered, give us a call over at the service desk. We've seen a variety of different problems, most of which have actually been solved even before this year. But if you guys run into an issue, like we had a problem with Verizon for a while, or there was emails that weren't getting the confirmation emails, if you guys run into something like that, just let us know. Most of those wrinkles have been ironed out already, but we just need to know so that we can pass that information on to our liaison with SentriLock. Now, once you guys have got that information put in there, make sure that you save it, just so that we understand a couple of the things that are popping up here because they are not related to anything else. You don't have to worry about them, even though they might seem concerning. We've got a reciprocal region down here at the bottom that says Texoma Board of Realtors. The important note on this is just that this doesn't necessarily represent what association you're a part of. This is literally just saying we have a cooperating region that happens to be Texoma. They had their own account with SentriLock before they ended up ingratiating themselves into our MLS system. So we just have them added on as a reciprocal region. That's it. No extra thought required. Don't worry about it. This linked accounts option, again, not something that you guys are going to need to worry about, but this is going to be if you guys have multiple SentriLock accounts amongst several associations. This is not going to be required if you're a part of our MLS. Full stop. So you guys shouldn't have to worry about that unless you guys have a separate SentriLock account with a different MLS or a different association in a different state or whatever the case may be. That's it for our profile settings. Let's head now to our account settings over on the left. This is where there's going to just be a couple things that we need to know. Over here on the right-hand side, it shows which devices we have registered. It'll also show how many devices you can get your SentriLock app on. Right now I have 5 remaining. If you guys ever run into any restrictions on this, just give us a call. We can increase the number of devices you can connect. But typically you want to sign out of the old devices before you actually start a new one. But I know how it goes when you replace a phone. That doesn't always get to happen. Might be kind of sudden and without warning that you don't have a phone, but not to worry. There is a section here to change your password or your PIN. The important note on this page is actually going to be the team members. So before we leave the account settings, if you do have anybody that is either officially a part of your team, whether that's something that you guys have registered through OREC, or whether it's just somebody else in your office that you work in tandem with or co-list listings with, whatever the case may be, you guys can actually go through the process of adding them. It's very simple. You just type in their name. It'll give you a pop-up including all of the other people that have that specific name. Make sure to choose the correct person. It's going to show their name, their email address that they have registered, and then typically either their MLS login or their license number. So make sure you choose the right person. After you select them, click this little plus icon. So again, what you do is you type out their name, click on the autofill, and then click the plus. Now you can see that I've got Rachel and Veronica have already confirmed that they are team members of mine. Now that I have asked Ethan to get in contact with me, and you may have even noticed that I had him added before, but once I've created the request to Ethan, it's only going to show this little pending thing. I do not have access to his listings, nor does he have access to mine. So if you do end up deciding that maybe I don't want him to have access to it, you can just hit that little negative sign and it'll be removed. All right. Now let's move on to the showing settings. We're not going to be discussing the lockbox side of things at all today. There's a couple buttons that I'll point out in passing, but we're not going to be discussing our lockboxes. Again, everything that we're going to be dealing with today is all from the perspective of the showing service. Now, I click on showing settings, and the important thing to remember about this area is this is going to be your default settings. So whenever a new listing gets added into the system, or whenever you're requesting a showing on a listing, these are going to be the settings for the showing side and the settings for your listings when they get imported into SentriLock. So the showing agent preferences, obviously very simple. We've got default appointment types. The default for this, even as a system default, is first showing, pretty typical. Default appointment length. This is one that I might recommend changing. If you guys are used to normally doing 30-minute appointments, cool. Set that as your default. And if you need to explore the space more, you can always adjust that once you get to the showing scheduling portion. And they may even have restrictions, which is actually addressed over on the listing agent side. So the listing agent preferences, and this is what's going to be applied whenever you create a new listing in Matrix. It's going to automatically say, all right, can we allow agents to schedule? This is a system-wide yes or no. This means that if I do end up setting this to no, even listings that I currently have available will not be available. We have a default appointment mode. This is what's going to be applied when the listing gets added. You can see that we've got actually, let me zoom this out so we can actually read this. There we go. We've got two different appointment required options. There's appointment required confirm with any. And when we get to the point where we're actually establishing a appointment pattern for a listing, we can see that we can add multiple contacts to our listings. So if we have maybe a seller that's interested or two sellers that are interested, if any of them confirm an appointment, it's automatically approved, and the person that was trying to do the showing will have the confirmation sent to them. If we choose instead to do appointment required confirm with all, this means that whether it's just you or if you have you, a seller, maybe even another seller, everybody has to sign off on that appointment in order for it to be confirmed. This isn't necessarily the best option. I would say typically the first option is the one that I would go with. But if you do end up having those situations where there's been a lack of communication or trouble communicating, you can set this to confirm with all, and that'll make it so that you have to confirm it, the homeowner has to confirm it, their spouse has to confirm it before somebody will actually be able to come out. If that sounds like a lot of links in the chain just to make sure that something happens, I feel the same way. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but it's available if you would like it. Finally, we have a go and show option. We're going to be seeing this one a little bit later, but this is a great option if you guys are working with vacant land. For instance, if you guys have a property that's vacant, or if you guys are just working with a piece of land, that go and show option means that anybody can schedule an appointment and it's just automatically approved. They set up a time, they can go out, they can show it, easy peasy. No confirmations required. I typically wouldn't recommend this if you do have an occupied residence, but otherwise it's a great option, especially if you guys want a hands-free registration process. Now, the maximum appointment length for showings, again, this is just a default that gets applied. I would recommend setting this to whatever you guys would normally be using for your listings. You can always go into each listing individually and adjust the appointment mode, adjust the length of the appointments, even turn specific listings off from getting appointments scheduled. We'll take a look at all of those options later. Same thing goes with allowing overlapping appointments. Just to clarify, when you guys have the go and show option set up, you can still request that people don't come out at the same time, but otherwise there are no appointment restrictions on those. So the only restriction you can actually set up is allowing overlapping appointments or not. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. But once you guys have set this all to be the defaults that you would like to use, make sure to hit save. I'll give you a little confirmation. And now let's move on to notifications. Now, the notification screen, we're not going to spend any time on, but I did at least want to introduce you guys to this. I would suggest that you go in here later just to see what it can offer. For instance, I really don't like receiving emails. Send it to me in instant message or text or something like that. So this email option might not be of interest to me, but I can choose whether or not to use that or a text message on this page. But since most of these are going to be very personal things that you guys might want to choose or not choose, just go in there and double check it. We have no official recommendations besides what the defaults are. As you can see, I've left everything checked with yes, no, where it was a default, and so on. All right, so make sure to save any changes if you have made any. And let's move on now to the dashboard. Now, the dashboard is going to be found under the My Schedule option. So click on Dashboard. What this is going to allow me to see is over on the left-hand side here, you can see any of my team members. Now, these are only the confirmed ones. Remember, I added Ethan earlier, and I do not see his information showing up. If he does end up agreeing to the connection, I'll see him appear here, and I can click on any of their names to see their showings and anything that they have scheduled. Similarly, they'll be able to click on myself and see any of my listings, appointments, and so on. Now, as far as the actual interface goes over here to the right, once we've chosen who we're going to be viewing, we have a list of everything that's happening, which means that I'm going to see all of the showings that I have set up, as well as the showings that are occurring on my own listings. We can see this broken down by today, tomorrow, an all option, which shows everything that's occurred or anything that's explicitly in the past, which is everything here, unfortunately. But all of these delineations for time are going to be the same thing whenever I switch over to showings I have, which is a little bit more focused on just the things that I've scheduled on other people's listings. But then we've got showings on my listings, again, just the stuff that's scheduled on mine. And then we also have an option to see appointment details. Now, the appointment details tab will actually activate as soon as I click on a specific property's appointment. So if we needed to learn more about this, we can see that. It also gives us kind of a nice calendar overview as well. So if we wanted to find out more about this particular showing or that particular date, we can see what happened on that date and then click on that to view more information on it. But that's it for the dashboard. Coincidentally, this appointment details is kind of mirrored when we get to my schedule and calendar. This is just going to be a little bit bigger view. You can see that we have some filter options over on the side. So for instance, if I don't want to see anything that was canceled, I can uncheck that and it'll remove any of those incidents. If I similarly don't want to see any of the time breaks or any that were missed, not confirmed, maybe ones that aren't on my listing, we can uncheck all of those checkboxes and it will remember that information for next time I come in. You can also break this down on a week-by-week basis. So for instance, if I do have a relatively packed schedule for any of my showings, this might be a little bit better view. Oops. So we can actually see all of the appointments kind of laid out in a little bit more manageable view. So I can see, okay, it's 11 a.m. that we're going to be coming out, or close to 11 a.m. and it's not confirmed. Move on to the next week. You can see this one was confirmed. I can click on it. It'll pull up more detail for me so I can see who it was that went out and so on and so forth. All right, so that's it for our dashboard. Let's now go over to the editing phase. So this is all fine and dandy, assuming that we actually have a showing that we've set up, or we've got listings that have been opened up so that the other agents can schedule. Let's actually now talk about how to actually make one of those listings available so that other agents can actually schedule showings on your listings. So in this case, we're going to go to the nice, easily named My Listings option. And again, just like last time, we see all of our team members over here on the left. So if we do have somebody else that we're going to be able to work as, we can just go through, click on Rachel's information, see her listing, whether or not there's any scheduled, so on and so forth. But when you're looking at your list, what it's going to do is it's going to allow you to see all of the listings that it has automatically imported over from Matrix. Now, currently, I only have this one listing, so we're not going to get a nice big full list. But it's worth pointing out that each listing will have the option to open up further if you just click on the address, MLS number. But there's some buttons over here to the right that are going to go to a different portion of the system. If you guys do have a lockbox that you want to connect to it, there will be a little option here to connect to that lockbox. If you guys would like to create a temporary access code, so for instance, not another agent that's coming out, but somebody that maybe just needs a one-time access code, or you have a photographer coming out or an appraisal coming out, whatever. And then finally, we have the SentriConnect option. This is where you guys can grant explicit access to an individual that already has the SentriLock app. So a little bit more advanced than the access code, because the access code will go into the lockbox. The SentriConnect will actually be effectively the same thing as your SentriLock app, but connected to this particular lockbox. But that's it for our lockbox coverage. Everything else that we're going to be discussing is now all showing. So if I want to make some adjustments to how appointments can be scheduled for this particular listing, as I mentioned before, we can click on the address or the MLS number, and that'll open up the appointment settings tab. So in case you guys missed that transition, when I clicked on the listing number or the address, I moved from the listings tab where I got to see all of my listings at once, and it moved me over to this appointment settings section. Now, everything else that's related on the top here, all of these tabs, are going to be directly related to this particular listing, and I can see which listing I'm on with this drop down up at the top here. Additionally, if I did have multiple listings available on my listings page, I can click on this drop down to quickly and easily move between multiple listings if need be. So even if you do find yourself on the wrong listing or you're wanting to make changes to a different listing, instead of having to go back to the listing page and click on a different listing number and then move back into that appointment settings and then back into whatever tab it was, you can move to that tab, click on the drop down, change which listing you're working with, and it'll pull up the instructions for that particular listing. But for now, let's start off with our appointment settings options. We're going to see a couple familiar options that we already saw on the showing settings page when we were going through our profile settings. So we have allow overlapping appointments. I currently have that turned on. I did want to briefly mention some options with this just because this is kind of an important choice. Allowing overlapping appointments means that there's a possibility that you have multiple people in the house at the same time. This could be a good thing if you guys want to show that the property has a lot of interest or that there's multiple people trying to view it or make offers on it. One of the catches with it is that if you do have multiple people in the house and something goes missing or gets broken, or right now we've got COVID going on. If you guys are just trying to make sure that the property is safe, or at least we know exactly who it was that was in the property whenever X, Y, or Z was broken or stolen, those overlapping appointments could become a little bit of a hindrance to finding out who was responsible. Now, security measures, safety measures aside, allowing overlapping appointments is typically a good thing because multiple people there, multiple offers, pretty likely. But that's all up to your discretion, and you can always set this, as I mentioned already, for each and every listing. So instead of having to just set this once and then every listing that you have is going to end up allowing overlapping appointments, or setting this once, even if you've got this hot property, can't have multiple people in at the same time. Nope, just set it for each listing by clicking on the drop down and choosing which listing you want. So I'm going to turn mine off for now. There is also a temporarily hold all showing requests option. This is great if you guys do end up in a situation where you no longer want to make the showings available. Maybe there's a family emergency, or there's a brief moment where you guys are going to be doing repairs on the property, or whatever the situation is. Turn that toggle on and people will just not be able to schedule appointments for this property in the interim. Now, this is a little bit more all-encompassing. If we end up turning this on, it's going to completely ignore any of the auto confirm options or showing restriction options. It's just going to say this appointment or this listing is not available for appointments at all. It should be noted that instead of using this temporarily hold all showings, if you guys do have an ETA of when the showings can start again, it might be better served to just do an appointment restrictions option. Now, the use auto confirm showing acceptance and appointment restrictions actually follow pretty much the same basic functionality. There are toggles to turn these on or off, but let's talk about this auto confirm option first. Now, we mentioned before that there is the go and show option. When we turn on go and show, it literally means that anybody and everybody that tries to schedule an appointment, barring any overlapping appointments, if we have that turned on, will be able to get their appointment established. No muss, no fuss, just schedule a time, go out and show it. If we end up setting this to either of the appointment required options, it's going to allow us to set up an auto confirm option and an appointment restriction. So if you guys like the idea of, let anybody come in and at least take a look at the property during X, Y, or Z timeframes or date range, or whatever the case may be, you can set those up using this auto confirm showing option. So to establish that, we do add auto confirm rule. We can choose between a timed rule, which means that I'm going to set up a certain time of the day that it's going to automatically confirm any appointments. Or we can even just say, anytime you guys schedule an appointment during whatever the date is or whatever the day is, will automatically be approved. Now, if it's going to be an auto confirm, I typically don't recommend using the all day rule. I'd usually recommend doing a timed rule so that you can say, all right, I only want appointments between, let's say, 11 and 7 p.m. Anytime somebody requests an appointment between those time frames, it's going to automatically approve it. Then the only thing that we have left to do is choose whether we want it to only be for a certain day, where I can just click this calendar and say just for today, or we can establish this as a repeating rule where 11 to 7 will automatically be approved starting on tomorrow and ending, whenever the listing agreement date is over, and choosing which days I'm going to be including. So in this case, I'm going to do Monday through Friday, 11 to 7, starting tomorrow for today, and ending at the end of the listing agreement. Hit save, and it's going to visualize that for me. So every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 11 to 7 starts such and such date. Now, the appointment restriction system works the exact same way. So remember, the auto confirm means that anybody that requests time in between those date rate or those time frames will automatically have an appointment approved. If we set up an appointment restriction, they literally cannot schedule during that time, even if it's an appointment where they have, let's say that you guys have the 60-minute appointment length. If I end up setting this up so that nobody can schedule between midnight and let's do 10. Here we go. And then we set up a specific date. So I'm going to say on Saturday. We can save that. And that's going to prevent anybody from scheduling anything at all until after 10. Or for instance, if you guys didn't want anybody to schedule an appointment after 7:30, we can establish that as well. Here we go. So Saturday night is blocked off. Now notice I set this one up for just a one time. So instead of doing this starts, it's actually just saying this is all blocked off so that Saturday night they have free. If I wanted to change this, I'm actually going to have to close it out and re-add the information. So there is no edit option, unfortunately. Oh, and can we add additional rules? Is there a limit? Yes. So for instance, if you guys do end up wanting to add more, so like if you wanted to do maybe a confirmation for the weekends, we can say an all-day rule. We want it to be every Sunday, starting again today, ending at the end of the listing agreement, save. We can establish multiple different overlapping or even just completely separate rules. And again, same thing goes for appointment restrictions. Yeah, that's a good question. All right. So over on the right-hand side, we have the same option that we saw before for the showing settings. We can do appointment required, confirm with any, confirm with all, or go and show. Again, the confirm with any is going to be the best option, in my opinion. We're going to discuss the contacts option in a moment here. But if we do have multiple contacts, confirm with all can be a little bit slow to get everybody to sign on to an appointment. So maximum appointment length. Again, we are establishing a maximum appointment length for this particular property. So instead of it being a default, we can make a change so that if this is a 750 square foot condo, I can just say I don't need any more than 30 minutes to show it all off. This is a sprawling mansion on Peoria. Cool, maybe let's set it up for 90 minutes as the maximum showing length. Now we also have a feature here for advanced notice required. So beyond even the hold on just a sec. Sorry about that. So beyond even the confirmation rules or the restriction rules, there is another separate rule that's advanced notice required for showing. And at the moment, I have it set for 4 hours. This is about 3 hours away from me. I maybe need an hour of leeway just in case I'm in the middle of something. So this advanced notice will actually be a sliding block of time that's always going to prevent people from scheduling anything within 4 hours. Now that does go down to the 15-minute mark. So what that means is that if I were to try and schedule an appointment for this particular property right now, the soonest that I could actually schedule this would be 5:45. And then the maximum appointment length would be 90 minutes. which means that I'd be pretty close to the end of that auto confirm time frame. But this is an essential tool if you guys do actually want to be present for your showings. So if you do end up in a situation where the seller is not going to be available and you're the one that has to show people around the house, whatever the case may be, you can use that option to just have a sliding block of time that people can't schedule during. All right. Now, again, make sure that if you do end up making any changes, you save those before we move on. Let's head over to the instructions tab. Again, it's still going to be the instructions for this particular listing. We've got some basic instructions over here. We've got the lockbox instructions. Just so you guys are aware, the lockboxes that we use with our MLS, with our association, and even the neighboring associations using SentriLock, we're all using the SentriLock Bluetooth option. There are some other options on here, but just wanted to make sure that was clear. Mechanical can also mean the combo boxes. So if you guys are still using combo boxes or something that's not digital or SentriLock related, you can add those on there as well. Now, beyond that, there is a section underneath here where you guys can add in any further instructions for the lockbox. So for instance, if it's a combo box, make sure to put in whatever the code is. Or if you guys have a lockbox kind of hidden away so that you guys don't end up having somebody try and make a break with your SentriLock keybox, you can note where it is or if it's chained up or something like that. Alarm instructions, make sure that you don't just put the code and then leave it at that. If there are instructions that you guys need to pass on to make sure that you don't have somebody that, you know, has an alarm going off for their entire showing, make sure to put those instructions in there. And I've heard that as an example sometime when we had somebody describing how it works to do showings. How many of you guys have actually had that situation where an alarm has been going off while you guys were trying to do your showing? Just hit that raise hand button down at the bottom. Oh, both of the Jennifers. Okay. This appears to be a Jennifer unique problem. I mean, at least that's good news. I had a much smaller class where half the class raised their hand and I was really bummed, but that's okay. Again, make sure that you guys provide enough information. You don't want to have to deal with that. Make sure that somebody else doesn't have to either. Additional information can be added as well. So this is unrelated to the lockbox or the alarm. You can just add some extra information like it's been winterized or if there's any pets that need to stay inside. It'll also import any showing instructions over from the listing details if there was anything added. So again, make sure to save any changes that you've made. I'm going to head over now to the contact section. Now, in our case, we actually do have a homeowner that's been added. I'm going to remove this person so you guys can see what the default looks like. So when you first land on this contacts page, I'm seeing only my information appearing here. And it's offering to confirm appointments by, I can get text, email, or I've got the app on my phone, so I can do the message center in the app. Or I can also get the confirmed or canceled appointment notifications by text, email, and message center, again, the app. Now, if it does turn out that we want to add the seller, so whether they're going to be doing the confirmations or even just want to receive a notice that they've had a showing on their property, there's two different ways for us to do this. We can either head over to the My Clients option, which is over here at the top, or we can click on the Add Client button that's over here to the right. There is a homeowner notifications button here. This is actually directly related to the key boxes. So you don't have to necessarily fill that out. They don't necessarily even have to receive that information. All of it can be funneled through the showing service. So I'm going to click on this Add Client option. And we can either choose somebody that's already been added here. So for instance, if I had somebody that I'd previously worked with and I needed to just add them on there, there you go, and they can get their appointments, whatever. But if you don't see them on this list, so if we do not see the client that I'm interested in adding on this particular list, that means that we're actually going to have to go over to this My Clients button. Now, just remember where we are. At the moment, we're under My Listings. We chose the listing, we navigated through the appointment instructions, and now we're on the contacts page. So we're going to be coming back to this in just a minute here. But first, let's go to My Clients, Lead Page. And let's take a look at our contacts that we have. So to add a client, it's fairly simple. There's a nice big button up here at the top, Add Client. We only have to put in first, last, email, and cell phone number. Now, the cell phone number in this case actually is required. This is going to be how they can receive text messages, and so on. But if you do end up going through that process and adding a client, they're going to pull up with a menu like this. So we've gotten their contact information put in there. And then on the left-hand side here where we've got the list of people, so again, after you've added them, click on their button here, the menu button, and we can see the client profile, which is what popped up here. I can edit the profile if I needed to make changes. We also have client properties. This is how we're going to connect the client so that instead of having to go back to My Listings, go back to the contacts button, and then add the person from that list, instead, I'm still on this My Contacts page. I've already added the client themselves. I choose Properties, Selling, and Add Property. Now, in our case, I've already added this particular property. If we add something that's the wrong property, or if it's a duplicate, which we're actually on the verge of getting rid of, thankfully, you can select it and hit Remove. Now, the good news is, after you guys have clicked on that add, actually here, let me just go through the process just to show you guys. So I'm going to click Add Property. I'm going to choose the one that has the full street address. There we go. And then if I click on Manage Notifications, it's actually going to bring me back to where we just were earlier, so that instead of having to navigate my way all the way back, it's going to drop me right here on the contacts with their information ready to go. Now, there's two different ways for us to establish the confirmations. So in this case, you can see that I've got my training agent as the one that can confirm by text and email. We also have the notifications by text and email, but first last is actually not going to be receiving a text or an email for anything. This means that if I'm the only one that's added on here to do confirmations, I'm the only one that can do those confirmations. Now, if we want to make it so that the client also receives the notifications, we just check the checkboxes and we're good to go. Most of the time, I've noticed that people will do an either or, which means that they will either have the seller do all the work or they'll have themselves be the ones that confirm all the appointments. It does seem like there's some regional specificity to that. Like I've noticed a lot of people in Ada had been assuming that the seller would do the confirmations. Then we had people here in Tulsa who were a lot more involved with that portion of the process. It doesn't matter. It's all going to be dependent on this property and this client. So whichever way you guys would like to set it up, or whichever way your office would like you to set it up, just oblige those options. But in this case, I've got it set up so that he's going to be the one that does all of the work for this. And then I'm just going to receive notifications. And I can even set it up so that I just receive the notifications anyway. He's just going to be the one that has to do all the confirming. Now, just as a reminder, if we go back to our appointment settings and change that over from confirm with all, I'm going to have to make sure that everybody on here gets notifications. Otherwise, the appointment will not be confirmed. All right. So make sure to save any changes once you're done with that. And let's move on to the feedback form. So feedback form is very basic. This is one of the things that we've already put in some, ironically, feedback to SentriLock, letting them know that we would like this to be expanded. For the half of you guys who have actually already been using the alternative option that we had before, showing time, they had a really robust feedback option. We're hoping that we can get back to that point because it was useful for the few people that were actually really getting into the thick of it and trying to make really useful feedback forms for their clients. But either way that you guys want to do this, we've got the enable feedback. These are all the required questions. And then if you guys want to include some of these optional questions, they're just checkboxes that you guys can check if you want to include those. There's also one thing up here that I would recommend you guys adjust. we've got a request frequency. This is just going to be the number of times that they actually get the request sent. I wouldn't recommend going over 3. I mean, for those of you guys who've received kind of nagging emails about feedback, the first time, yeah, maybe I didn't get it the first time because I was busy. The second time, maybe I ignored it because I was still busy. By the third time, if I haven't made time for it, I'm not going to make time for it. So 4 or 5 times might be obnoxious. Just heads up. But set that up for whatever you guys feel is appropriate. If you guys really want to get feedback on this property, you can increase that number. There's also a reports section. This is where you guys can get a little bit of an overview of all of the stuff that's happened with this particular listing, how many appointments, how much feedback you've gotten, a little breakdown of what the feedback was, how much they liked it, so on and so forth. They've got an export option. This one is another thing that we've requested for a little bit of adjustment on, because here's one tiny thing on the page, and all of them get blown up to huge proportions. So hopefully we'll have that adjusted soon, but in the near future, this is going to be a really nice cohesive report that you guys can export. All right. We've also got the appointment history, which gets a little bit more into the details of each appointment, when it was requested, who was requesting it, whether it was confirmed, canceled, pending, etc. And then finally, we have the notifications page. Now, this was a popular function in showing time. Not sure why they called it notifications for the SentriKey side of things, but this notification option is actually sending messages to anybody that's either come out to take a look at the property, all of the listing or co-listing agents on the property, all of the agents in my office, strongly not recommended. We've also got the all listing contacts, which means that whenever you do send out a notification to maybe anybody that's gone out to show it, if you have a seller that's involved, they'll see that you're actually working on their behalf, which could be beneficial to them. We've got a price adjustment option, or you can just start with a blank template. Price adjustment just has some autofill stuff here. So you guys can add that in there if you wanted to, but it's fairly simple, very rudimentary system to get people to come back out and take a look at the property if you got a price adjustment, if the fence repairs are done, whatever the case may be. So this is actually a send option. Everything else we've been looking at so far has had very limited buttons, but we've got export, export, and send. All right, so that's it for adjusting our listings for showings. Again, once we start showing those listings, we can go back to the My Schedule section. We can see all of the showings on my listing. We can switch this over again to the showings on my listings. I would switch this to all. Again, it's going to prioritize the showings that are actually going to be more recent up here at the top. So anything that's in the future, you can quickly click on, confirm the appointment, and you're good to go. You can also see any of the requested appointments up at the top right here, where we've got the message center that we saw earlier. This is where you guys can see the appointments, and there's even an option to confirm appointments. It'll be at the bottom of each of these sections. And there's also a chat option. This is kind of a handy option. If you guys do end up in a situation where you needed to get more instructions from the listing agent, you can start up a chat with them. There is, unfortunately, some buy-in on this, which means that the agent will either have to have the SentriKey app on their phone, or they have to be signed into the SentriKey website on their computer, waiting for you to send a chat. So the notifications on that message center, I mean, it's great if you guys have the app, which again, most people will. And if you don't, download it immediately. It's very useful. But it does require people to actually be on the receiving end of that. All right. So now let's actually transition over to Matrix. Now, when we're in Matrix, if we find a listing that we would like to actually show, so I'm going to just pull up some listings here in Ardmore. And I'm going to just grab a random listing. When you guys are trying to find out whether or not a particular listing has a SentriKey showing option, it's actually going to be found when you get into the listing details and underneath the photo. So there will be a little yellow icon that has a little profile picture, which let's see if I can actually find one. It'll be this icon right here. as I'm trying to find one here. Let's just rapid fire through these. And had a showing time icon. Doesn't look like we have anybody using it in Ardmore at the moment. All right, that's fine. We'll do this instead because I've actually got it on my listing. There we go. So underneath the photo, or in this case, no photo, we've got a little icon here that's going to be the SentriLock appointments. Now, again, this is actually going to be directly related to the showing service. So if you do find those other icons there, these are related to the key box. The yellow icon is going to be the showing service. So we click on that little yellow icon, and it's going to ask us whether or not, oops, oh, it looks like it signed me out of my system already. Let's try that again. There we go. There, perfect. So when you click on that link, it's going to bring you to a page that looks like this. It's going to automatically add the information up here at the top for the property that you're interested in. It's going to have your information shown down here at the bottom, just as a preview of what's going to be delivered to the listing agent. And then over on the right-hand side here, we can see the time frames that are available. Now, if you guys remember, we set it up so that I had a 4-hour window of time that's going to automatically be blocked off no matter what my appointment restrictions are, which means that over here on the right, I can see that the soonest appointment that I can schedule is 6 p.m. Again, it's on a sliding scale. So at the moment, the nearest 15 of the hour is going to be 2 o'clock. So again, 4 hours from that is going to be 6 p.m. If I try to schedule a specific time, so remember we had the time frame that we were interested in setting up as an automatic approval. We set that Monday through Friday from 11 to 7. So if I set this up for 5 p.m., set it up for, let's do the maximum time frame of 90 minutes, virtual showing, and schedule. Oh, showing agent is required. Oh, that's me. I need to choose me. We'll do Mike Dane. There we go. Schedule now. It should automatically fill that if you're clicking on somebody else's listing. It's not going to require that. In this case, this is just allowing me to schedule a showing for another agent. But I've got this set up. So the showing agent will get a notification both in their app as well as by email, text message if they have that set up. And then I'm also going to receive a notification. I'm also going to receive the confirmation email because it automatically was set up. Now, after I've scheduled that, it brings me back to my schedule here. And if you remember, we actually have the option to show, in this case, it'd be a schedule for tomorrow. Oh, and actually that little email sound just now is the email confirmation that I got as the showing agent. If I click on all, again, just like I mentioned before, it's going to show you what the appointments are in reverse chronological order. So showing the most recent one, going back and back and back. And we can see that this particular showing has actually already been approved. So already confirmed. So again, all of that could be found just by clicking on this little link underneath the photo for the listing. I think our goal at the moment is actually to establish a similar link to the way that we had this with showing, or not showing time, CSS. So if you guys remember back in the CSS timeframe, we had a separate little icon option that was over here to the side that allowed us to automatically see whether or not there was a CSS assignment to it. At the moment, we don't have that established yet with SentriKey, but I'm assuming along with the rest of the polish that we're going to be adding to this app as time goes on, we're going to be making sure that some of those quality of life improvements will be added to the rest of the system. But that's about it. If we do have any questions, I'm going to leave the session running for another few minutes here, but for now, everybody that was able to join us from 105 on, you guys are eligible for the CE credit. If I could just get everybody to hit that raise hand option, I'm just going to do one last little poll for attendance at the end of class here, and I will see you guys in future classes. So again, if you guys wouldn't mind, hit that raise hand button before we leave. I'll just use that to mark that you guys were all here at the beginning of class with the poll and stuck around to the end of class. Mr. Herr, Shelly, Taylor, if you guys wouldn't mind hitting that raise hand option. I know this is just a little bit of a nuisance. Just to clarify why I'm doing this, under normal circumstances, OREC would require that we actually show your video the entire time. So I'd actually have to watch that you're sitting there looking at the computer screen. If I use this raise hand option, I can just measure that you guys are actually participating. So Taylor Ashlock, you're the last person, and then I'll go ahead and mark everybody as here, and we can go ahead and close up shop. But again, if you guys have any questions, or if you guys just want to stick around and discuss things, you guys can do so. But otherwise, hopefully I can see you guys in a future class. We will be trying to resume the in-person classes soon, just waiting for the COVID numbers to go down a little bit. So keep wearing masks, keep social distancing, and hopefully we'll be back in the classroom soon. But all right, I got everybody recorded. Thank you guys so much for joining us again. If you do have any problems or questions after class is over, don't hesitate to give us a call over the service desk. We can help you out. We've got our phone number listed. If you do end up in a situation where there's something that the system is not doing that you guys would like to have happen, get in contact with us and let us know. Primarily because we are trying to work with SentriKey right now to get all of the different things that we were kind of hoping for added, or any of the things that are still needing some polish fixed up and ready for use. But since this is kind of a brand new system that was just launched last year, there are some kinks left. We just want to make sure that you guys are aware that we're working on your behalf and to funnel any of those recommendations, feedback, problems through us. All right. Again, thank you guys so much for joining. I've gotten everybody recorded so far, and since class is officially over, you guys can dip if you need to. And Taylor, if you're able to hear me, if you wouldn't mind hitting that raise hand button, just so I know that you're present. Otherwise, you will not be able to get CE credit for today's class. Oh, and I got you marked, Brandy. Thank you, though. All right. Oh, have a good one, ladies. Stay safe.